The retro FPS space continues to expand with a decent-sized amount of games available at this point. One on Steam that was recommended to me earlier this year was Forgive Me Father, and I was intrigued by it mostly because of its art style. So when the publisher for the game reached out and asked if I was interested in it, I obviously said yes, and got my hands on an early access build. For transparency's sake, I received a key for the game on Steam, and I wasn't paid to make this review. This video is just my opinion from my experience with the game. With that out of the way, let's dig into this. It wouldn't feel right to talk about this game without starting on the visuals. The description of the game says that they went for a comic book style mixed with some darker horror elements, and I'd say they nailed that. It reminds me a lot of Darkest Dungeon, if you've played that before. Anyway, I'm very into this art style. It is a neat looking game, from the enemy designs to the weapons, and most prominently for me, the levels. There were 12 of them available, and they were all pretty diverse. The first level is pretty standard of the genre. You're in a building, running through winding hallways and rooms, and it really makes great use of that Unreal Engine lighting. The second level starts similarly, in a building with tons of really cool detail and artwork, and I was like, damn, this is really cool, I like this. And then I opened a door to reveal one of the prettiest environments I've seen in a retro FPS game. It's like a starry night with some fog, and I love that the trees are swaying and the vines covering the brick walls and the hedges. It looks really cool. Throughout the game, you'll go through rundown cities to rooftops, forests, and also a hospital. I stumbled upon some secret areas with more unusual lighting and unique level design, and that was pretty cool too. Reminded me of something in Dusk. Overall, the atmosphere is just really well done, and one part of the game I didn't expect to really praise. Yeah, I don't really think about sound design when I think about my favorite parts of video games, but it is really good here. Like everything from ambient noises to gun sounds, they did a really good job with this stuff. That being said, it isn't all my cup of tea. Personally, I don't really like all the post-processing effects applied to the game by default. It's got this film grain noisy effect that's just not really my thing in games. Luckily, you can turn these off in the settings by just setting post-processing to low, so that's good. I'm glad they have the option for that. This is a really minor complaint, but I don't really get why the black border around the edge of the screen is so massive. I get what they're going for here, but maybe just make it a little less prominent. Alright, let's move on to enemies. These are just as solid as the rest of the game visually, with a variety of unsettling and creepy designs that fit right in. One of the first you're introduced to is the Wretch, and they're kinda just a zombie, but some of them are holding an extra head. And if you land a headshot, it'll just put the other one on and go back to trying to eat your face off, which I thought was pretty amusing. That's a cool enemy design. The other one I really enjoyed was the Fisherman, and these guys are the ogres from Quake, but instead of grenades, they just toss fish at you, and the fish explode. And I don't know, nothing really makes me feel fear like running away from a smelly fish that blows up. And yeah, that's like only 1/8 of the enemies in the game currently. There's a ton of projectile-based dudes, there's these Cthulhu-looking guys with guns. And my personal favorite is this guy who hides as a barrel, and it's actually just a disgusting nightmare being that gets up and sprints at you when you're near it. I actually got really scared by one of these. They are nasty fellas.
God. Oh. I just got scared by a fucking barrel. Please don't be okay. Jesus.
The vast majority of creatures feel good to fight, with only a couple of them having some underwhelming AI. My biggest gripe with combat is one that happens often in these games, and that is getting stuck on enemies. There were a handful of times where I would just get completely surrounded by swarms of dudes, and I didn't really have a way to get out of it other than frantically shooting, hoping I could eventually run out of them. I tried jumping out of the crowd, which you can do in some of these games, but it really didn't work. You just kind of get stuck on dudes sometimes. In the case of weapons, they're pretty much what you've come to expect. A melee weapon, which in this case is a knife, a revolver, shotgun, heavy machine gun, SMG, and the one unique weapon is a harpoon gun. The default weapons range from great to just okay. My favorites were the shotgun and the revolver, both feel and sound amazing. The standard machine guns weren't really my jam. I don't think I got used to the spread on them. You kind of have to aim lower than you'd expect, which is odd to get used to. Luckily, you can alter the weapons in a skill tree. After getting a skill point, you just open it up and put your point into whatever you're feeling. Weapons, abilities, or something else like ammo capacity. And I really dig how simple this is. You just press tab, it pops open in game, and you choose your upgrades, and you can go right back to gameplay. There's no need for like overly complicated menus to slow the game's pace. It's very quick. There's already quite a few upgrades in the game, and it has this branching paths system, so once you choose one, the other path gets crossed off, so that adds some replayability. It seems like they plan on adding more upgrades later down the line. By the end, I had an upgrade for every weapon other than the harpoon gun. All of them alter the weapon model, and some of them look really cool. I really like the goopy looking shotgun, and this knife looks sick, and it just increases damage, so I'll take it. To add to combat, there's also a mechanic called Madness. As you fight enemies, your Madness level will increase, which in turn makes you deal more damage and reduces incoming damage. It feels kind of like the FPS version of a combo, and it's a pretty cool idea. It would be helpful to show how much of a damage increase you have though, maybe by putting a little number somewhere near the Madness indicator. Along with that, I'm not a huge fan of my screen going black and white every time I'm at a higher Madness. I get the idea you're supposed to be in this state of delusion, and it sort of gets that across, but I would have preferred the option to disable that effect. Outside of the weapons, there are also 4 abilities unlocked throughout playing the game, and they do pretty standard things. There's a cross that regenerates your health, a broom that you can smack people with and it stuns them. There's an invincibility spell kind of thing, and also ammo regen. What's available for a story is told in bits of text you find around each level, and while I did read a lot of it, I had absolutely no idea what I was reading. From what I could tell, it was heavily referencing the works of H.P. Lovecraft, and since I have not read anything, I was pretty much lost. Which isn't a big deal to me, it's not essential to enjoying the game at all, but for anyone who does know the works being referenced, I'm sure they'd absolutely love reading this. I do appreciate a little Shining reference though. Any game that puts that in it, it's got an extra point in my book. Forgive Me Father sticks to what you'd expect from retro FPS gameplay with a skill tree to make things more customizable, but it shines in its unique art style, great level design, and cosmic horror influence. There are currently 12 levels along with a couple boss fights, and it took me about 3 hours to play through it all. During my time, I didn't encounter any game-breaking bugs at all. The biggest problem for me personally was getting stuck on hordes of enemies without a way to get out, and I found some of the post-processing effects a bit too in your face. Most of these complaints are extremely simple changes to make, and I could definitely see these being implemented during the early access. I'm excited to see what will be expanded upon in this game. There's a lot of potential in this one, and I think it's a great option for anyone looking for another retro FPS to dive into for a few hours. Thanks again to 1C Publishing for reaching out, and thank you for watching my video.